Quiet Place Part 2 review. So Quiet Place Part 2 is available to see only in theaters, and I cannot recommend any more or any further how necessary it is to see this movie in theaters. It's absolutely spectacular. This is a spoiler review. We'll be going over the movie, going over details, no holding back. This currently has a 91% of Rotten Tomatoes. It has a 93% audience score, and it has a 7.9 out of 10 on IMDb. That's a phenomenal score. So here's
Doing
a
great.
synopsis according to Google. So following the deadly events at home, the Abbott family must now face the terrors of the outside world as they continue their fight for survival in silence. Forced to venture into the unknown, they quickly realize that the creatures that hunt by sound are not the only threats that lurk beyond the sand path. Okay, Ricky Flicks, what was your knee jerk reaction to A Quiet Place Part 2?
Yeah, I really like this movie. I really did. Like you said in your little intro there, seeing it in theaters is game changing. Seeing A Quiet Place in theaters was one of the best movie theater experiences of my life, and seeing this was right there with it. It was so good to see. I know you saw it alone. I saw it with someone, um, and I just every time something like there was a lot of action sequences in this movie, a lot of suspenseful, thrilling surprises, and I could just feel the people jump. The people I was with jump like on top of me. Basically, they're at the edge of their seat. They're hitting me, saying, "Oh my god! Oh my god!" You got to see this in theaters. Now to the actual movie. The action sequences were sick. It felt kind of like a Jurassic Park in at parts, like when what was it, Reagan, her name, the daughter,
Okay.
when she's on the train, and like the obviously the non-moving train, and the it's like mano a mano from the alien. It kind of felt like Jurassic Park with the raptor in the kitchen. Like it was just a lot of like things like that in this movie that were similar to Jurassic Park and like Spielberg, like what Spielberg always does in his movies. So that part was great, and I really liked Killian Murphy in this. I did. I really liked him. What about you, Doc?
So knee jerk reaction, I like walked out of the theater. I'm like, this was phenomenal. I didn't know if it was just I just had the high of being in the movie theater again and coming out of such an electric and suspenseful movie. But thinking back on it, I think this is almost at the same level as the first one. I'm not gonna say it is on that same level because this was a sequel that did what it had to do to expand this universe and grow upon the first movie. So the first movie, it's very much obviously you have all these aliens. You all imagine this large scale film. No, it's happening on this one farm, very small scale in the first movie. And then John Krasinski was so good in that first movie. I was like sad that man, like we're not going to see him much in the second one. Obviously, only through flashbacks. Killian Murphy coming in, obviously that not necessarily a downgrade. He's a phenomenal actor, but just John Krasinski was so good. But what this second movie did is that it kind of goes into it expands larger scale. Obviously, you have different settings. The family's getting split up a little bit. All right. They're facing new challenges. You're meeting new characters. This sequel does what a world building sequel is supposed to do. And to go with Killian Murphy, let's just start with him. All right. Because you brought him up. Let's go over the performances in the film. I personally, I didn't think he had a strong start to the movie. I really wasn't drawn to his character as much as I wanted to be because I'm all I'm a Peaky Blinder fan. I love Killian Murphy, but as the movie went on, his relationship grew with Reagan. Right, I felt like man, I really do enjoy his character, and there's parts. I know it's a spoiler review. There is a part where you think he's going to die. I'm like, wow, are they going to kill the male lead again in A Quiet Place? And I was like, please don't do it. Please don't do it. But then Reagan coming up big. I think that was a huge part of the movie. It made it so enjoyable. Because I think, honestly, like Killian Murphy, like, yes, like that's the name. But I think this movie did belong to Reagan, right?
Yes.
I think this was her movie. And I think she did a phenomenal acting job. And Noah Jupe was good as well as his son. But I think this was her movie and she owned it. What do you think?
Yeah, this was definitely a focus on the kids, right? Emily Blunt leaves the movie for like large periods of times just to go grab more oxygen for the baby. So like this was basically like for the kids, and I really liked Reagan in this movie, but Noah Jupe just I found so annoying. I just that was like the big performance I didn't like. I was just really did not like watching him, and I don't.
So Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I just found him very annoying, and not just in what he does, but just his mannerisms and everything he's doing. Just is the way he's portraying the character. I just didn't like it at all. I really didn't. I know that's a hot take, and I'm definitely in the minority, but I just really didn't. But on the other hand, I do agree with you. I think the main focus was on Reagan and on her performance, and I thought she was great.
So Noah Jupe's character, like I think he has to go through a lot. He takes care of the baby. There's a lot like his I like and what this movie does that's so interesting, there is a immense focus on the younger characters. Even like you almost expect Emily Blunt, Killian Murphy, they're gonna own the movie. Not so.
Nope.
Not so whatsoever. And like the writing of this movie, what was so good is that they split up the family, right? You have Killian Murphy going along with Reagan, right? His Emmett character, Emily Blunt stuck with Noah Jupe and the baby. What they did with the writing is that they paralleled one another the entire movie. Like this person's going through this kid is going through this, and they're almost replicating one another. And it shows that they're going through the same thing. They're going through the struggle of survival. And I really did like that aspect. But in terms of like Emily Blunt, you didn't hear like literally Quiet Place. You didn't hear much from her. She wasn't on screen as much as you'd anticipate following the death of John Krasinski character in the first one. So I was honestly a little disappointed by that. But it's obviously the showcase is for the kids, and I think that I didn't really see that coming, and I really did enjoy that aspect. Um, Moving along, I also wanted to talk about a detractor I had about them, a detractor I had from the movie, and there is I mentioned the world building aspect, and what made A Quiet Place One so good is obviously the volume. That movie, it was quiet for so much of the time that when the actual like noise hit, it was like it threw you off and it made you jump out of your seat. This one, it was pretty loud movie for a movie called Quiet Place Part Two. I don't think it was
Yeah.
pretty loud. Like there's a lot of dialogue between Killian Murphy's character and Reagan. Obviously, Killian Murphy can't speak sign language, but I think that just showed like okay, it's now like it has to get like it doesn't hold that same magic as the first one did, and they did their best to do that, but just based on the character that Killian Murphy had and the necessary communication and everything, I think that was it was just a natural thing that was going to happen. What do you think about that when you compare the two movies?
Yeah, like there's a lot more talking in this. Like just at least double the amount of talking. And what that does, it makes it less unique. It makes it easier for us, the audience, to just watch it and listen to it. We don't have to focus as much, right? But it doesn't make it as memorable. And it's effective and less frustrating, like I said, but honestly, it just makes it less unique. And I think that's like a big thing I have with this movie, comparing it to the first one, is that even though I really like this movie, you don't really get those signature moments, not just with the sign language or the John Krasinski and the Reagan relationship, right? You don't like when John Krasinski in the first one, like this is spoilers, so here you go. John Krasinski yelling, sacrificing himself in the first one, iconic moment. The Emily Blunt holding the shotgun. You don't have any of those iconic stills in this movie, in my eyes. Her in the bathtub, like I just don't think you really get those. You have the great beginning sequence, which honestly might have been the best part of this film. That the beginning sequence with John Krasinski and the introduction to the aliens, that was awesome to watch. That was very fun to watch. But or the first kid getting killed, another iconic moment in the first movie.
And then
So
you also see, even in the second movie, like he's walking down, like they throw like the little Easter eggs. He's walking in the
yeah,
shop and he goes right by the rocket that the kid was playing with and everything. You
hmm
know,
yeah.
but
So like, I just don't think there was any signature moment in this that was even close to the first one.
I think there might have been. It's not, and like that would be spoiler review. Killian Murphy and Emmett and Reagan, they go get the boat and they run into these people that I assume are cannibals, right? So
hmm
like they try and kidnap Killian Murphy.
Scoot McNairy.
Was that Scoot McNairy?
Yeah.
Wow. So didn't have a line in the movie. But here's what happened. And this is like the writing that I really enjoyed is that at the beginning of the movie, he's learning sign language, Killian Murphy's character from Reagan, and he does the dive. right? So
That
like
was good.
the girl slings basically a noose, trapping Emmett's character, Killian Murphy, on the dock, and then he turns to Reagan saying, "Jump in the water," and he does it by going to dive, and she died. Like that part, I think was exhilarating, where Killian Murphy's underwater, then you find out the aliens can't swim and everything. The aliens just going ham, knocking out these cannibals left and right. And even if we're talking about potential spin-offs, that is a group that could be explored, because like we really don't really we didn't learn much about them. I'm assuming the fact that they're cannibals, you don't really know their motive,
Hmm.
but that's once again, this movie, it did what a sequel's supposed to do. Larger scale, stakes are raised. Okay, they even had, right, going like they're why are they at the dock in the first place? They're going from a boat to an island because the monsters can't swim, right? So it's like, okay, how do we escape this now? Right. So it's not
Hmm.
just about survival. It's about like living your life now. And so it's going to be fascinating to see. And I think now I'm just like, I'm going on, but
Go, go, go.
this, the end of this movie, they are not together. They are split up. The baby, Emily Blunt, right, and Noah Jupe, they're still
Hmm.
stuck right on mainland, and they can't get to that island, right? So is Killian Murphy and Reagan. Are they going to go back to the mainland to get them? Are they just going to follow, right? Because they have the signal now. They hear the Beyond the Sea song.
Right.
Like they got the signal. They know that they have to get over there, but how are they going to get there? So
And
that's why I'm so shocked this threequel isn't happening as soon as possible, you know?
Killian Murphy, like his leg is so broken and cut open, like he's not gonna be able to walk for so long,
Mm-hmm.
like months. So I'm gonna be interested in how much of a time jump they do for this third one, and whether, like, I don't know what they're gonna do, because if they speed up that recovery, hey, I will call that out. I know people say, "Oh, it's just a movie and it's a fantasy," obviously, like extreme fantasy. Tom DeLonge would disagree, but with a movie, it's similar to like like superhero movies. Like when you jump into a universe, then you want to really be inside that universe and kind of be see like what are the inconsistencies of it. So like I really will hope that they really just don't botch that and they just speed up that recovery or do something stupid like that. Like there was a lot of things in this movie that I like found to be just utterly ridiculous. Like just the fact that Reagan was by herself in the train in the first place was just utterly ridiculous. And then what happens? And then a lot of the times when they shot they actually shot at the aliens, sometimes it would like they would shoot them in the face, they won't die. Other times they'll blow their head off. It's like, all right, what the heck? Like do you shoot them in the face, blow their head off or not? Like we got to pick one here.
Right.
So
Like how
there's a lot of
accurate do you
things
have to
like that.
be? How accurate do you have to be when you shoot
Yeah,
in the
like
face? You
there's
know?
just what it wasn't consistent at all. Like obviously this isn't a huge drawback, but I just hate like watching a movie because throughout the entire movie now, once you see that inconsistency, you're constantly thinking that throughout the movie rather than thinking about the plot or there's just the story coming forward. So I don't really like that when I'm watching a movie, but looking back at it, it's not a huge deal.
One gripe I had was how, like, because obviously Emmett and Reagan, they get to the island, like the fact that that boat just randomly had the alien in it and showed up on the island. I was just like,
Yeah,
that's kind of controversial. But like, how did it get there necessarily? It literally went right off the dock and just showed up at the island, like it made it all
exactly.
its way there, and like in that amount of time, I was kind of surprised by that, especially with like the attention to detail John Krasinski typically has with these movies, with the writing of them. So I was kind of shocked. But overall, man, I did think this was a special movie. It was needed to be seen in theaters. It really did. And it didn't have, as I said before, that suspense factor as much as the first one, but it had plenty. It had plenty.
It
It
was
still had,
missing, yeah, it was missing the allure and the mystique around it. And when the first one, like you knew it was going to be a suspense thriller, but you didn't know like they literally weren't going to talk the entire movie, or you didn't know that it was going to be this much like just suspense to it. This one, you're going in like, all right, I know what I'm going in for, but then they just went like hammer, like they just bopped you on the head constantly with the action sequences. So I really did like it. And it was different. It made it, it separated itself from the first one for sure.
yeah. And I think it had to do that. You know, I think
I
there's
agree.
no way that it was going to top the first one. And I think people accept that. I really don't think it was going to, because
Sequels usually don't.
the first one, yes, and the first one was such a unique idea. It was such a unique idea, and then obviously you have the powerhouse performance by John Krasinski. Like they talk about his directing job there. That acting performance by John Krasinski in the first one was so special, in my opinion. I think that was his best acting he's ever done in his career.
He probably won't have more like in his movie career. He probably won't have more of an iconic moment than that yell.
and it loses a little bit of the emotional weight too when the family's separated, right?
Yeah,
You
that
lose that
too.
they're not together. It's not, as I said, it's much more large scale. They're split up, but this is the writing that I like. They parallel consistently what the family's going through, right?
Hmm.
And that they really are in this together, even though they're not physically in one location. You know what
Right.
I mean? So
Yeah.
I like the way he did that, and he had to, right? Larger scale, larger stakes, expand the world. Not as good as the first, but very, very good. The Hall of very, very good.
Yeah. Like as far as sequels, like this is incredible. Like not as good as the first, but it's almost as good as you could have done.
Right. Agreed. I'm 100% on board with that. My goodness. And then yeah, and I also want to bring up Digimon Hansu. He was
Yes.
like in this movie for like 3 minutes. So
I
it's like
I watching this movie, I didn't know he was in it. And when I saw him on screen, I'm like, all right, I should have picked him in the supporting actors top billing. I should have picked him in that draft. Like he just always just ends up being a cameo or like he's always a supporting actor in these big box office movies. He
right.
always somehow gets these roles. So it's just like he would have been a perfect person for that draft. And I'm mad I didn't pick him. But he was in this for like 3 minutes.
Right. So and like that's like I don't know because like I don't necessarily love him. I love his voice and like he always shows up in these big
He
blockbusters.
has a good
But
presence too, like on screen.
as a
Has a good
yes,
sidekick.
he speaks like a mile an hour and just like you feel like he's just
He has a
just
good voice. He would be
yeah.
a good narrator on like a Planet Earth type thing.
Oh, yeah, sign him up, dude.
Yeah, that would be
Yes,
sick.
yes. Put him in some like Batman animated movies or
Or
something. Like he can
yeah.
do something,
Oh,
you know,
that would be sick if he got
like as
into
a
Batman
villain or
animated.
something like that. I like that, and they always make fire like animated films.
Yeah,
All right, Ricky Flex. How about we throw out some scores? What do you say?
I gave this an 86.
Mm,
86. I really liked it. You could really see, like we've been talking about it again, one more time. More action sequences, a lot more on edge of your seat from those action sequences. The suspense, the Michael Bay producing aspect of this really showed in this movie, in the sequel as well. In the sequel, really, there were some aspects I didn't like, but all in all, as far as sequel is concerned, this was very good.
mhm. Top notch in my opinion. I go with a 92. 92 for me. I really loved this movie. And I like the Quiet Place part one for me, just top of my head. I didn't score it by the first time I saw it or anything. We didn't have a podcast then. We weren't writing reviews. Like that movie is like a 95, 96 in my opinion. That movie is special. This one is the best you could
Special.
do for a sequel. It is special, man. And Cillian Murphy, I can't wait to explore his character even more. I felt like he got better the more you got to know his character, the further his relationship built with Reagan. Emily Blunt, kind of not more of an obscure character in here. She's grieving following the death of her husband, and she
Hmm.
has a lot to worry about, a lot in her mind. Obviously, the passing of her son earlier on, but I think the kids carried the load in this movie. Noah Jupe, I know you didn't like him. I thought he was awesome. I thought he was great. And the only thing is, he is at that age where if you get 1 year older, you look so different.
Yes, I was
So,
thinking that too.
like he looks so young in A Quiet Place, the first one back in 2018. And then I'm watching him like carrying the bat at the Little League game. I'm like, he looks like he's 15. Like,
Right. Yeah. Like
he
he shouldn't be in a little league game.
right.
He should be at least in Babe Ruth on the big field, 90 feet.
Absolutely. It looked like just didn't, he wasn't the same person, but I think he did do a great job in the acting role. And I think he has a bright future ahead of him. I know you love Honey Boy and like
Oh, yeah.
you were telling me he has an all-time performance in that
All
for a young
time kid
actor.
performance.
Yeah. So maybe we'll have to do, I mean, we got top billing ideas up the yin yang, maybe
Hmm.
best child performances. So that's not a bad idea.
Now I'm thinking about it, thinking back in the movie Noah Jupe. One scene that I did not like with him is when he's like out exploring the garage or wherever they are, that like manufacturing warehouse or whatever, and he finds like Killian Murphy's, I'm allegedly like assuming, Killian Murphy's wife and kid, like their bodies. Like,
Oh yeah.
why even include that? Like, if you're not going to expand upon Killian Murphy's character any more than that, I just didn't even want to include that.
I think that's also like saying like you're gonna hear more about this character.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, you know, I think they are saving a bit for him because it's clear that the fact that they didn't kill him in this second movie, that they really have plans for him.
yeah.
And you
Either in
know
that
what?
spin-off role or the third one, they're gonna expand that more. Spin-off movie, I'll say,
I
and
would
then this.
love him in a spin-off movie, but I'd just be nervous. I don't think they will do it because it's just gonna be reminiscent of the first Quiet Place. You know what I mean?
Oh, good point.
Unless they really have different plans, like it's him trying to save his family, the fact that he loses his family, you know what's gonna happen. So it's almost
Yeah,
like maybe you gotta explore something
you're
different.
right.
Like you're talking about the origin of the monsters. That might be the better avenue.
Dang, yeah, that's a good point. I really would like to see that, like Kelly Murphy's character expanded a little more. That's one thing I wish I saw more. I thought he did a good job at actually just pure acting and expressing his emotions and connecting with Reagan, but I would have liked to expand his actual character more. But
Yeah. So like yeah, his background there was not nearly enough, but yes, as we said,
because
this
like
is
there was like, oh, you were friends, like, oh yeah, because he's on the same baseball team as your son is on the same baseball team as your son. Like that's not
they
enough.
try and establish that connection at the beginning of the movie,
It's
but
just I didn't think.
I don't think it was strong enough. But I
Yeah,
think they
no.
did try and establish it in the beginning. But like him, he's almost in the same state as like Emily Blunt, who's lost a son and her husband. He's lost his entire family, right? He's realized, and then like him saying, "I want you out tomorrow. I need you to do this." But it's because of that connection with Reagan, because he notices, like, man, like I need to be more like her dad. I need to be there for
Hmm.
others. This is a life worth living, no matter what. And now he's growing an attachment to this girl. And he said, like, he like, for example, Reagan gets on the train, falls asleep. She thinks that Killian Murphy took her things and dished him, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah, that
Walking
was a
Dead.
good
Like
scene.
that's it. I was like a Walking Dead type vibe to it, you
Yes.
know. But like what ends up happening? He comes back and says, "Hey, I found a boat. Let's get out of here." Right?
Right.
He's starting to believe again. He's believing because of this kid, and I think
That
it was a
yeah.
powerful performance by Reagan for sure.
Yeah.
All right, that does it for A Quiet Place Part Two. Make sure to check it out in theaters currently today. Go tomorrow because it's from Monday night, but go.